Welcome back to this series, Critical Thinking Skills in Science. This is Chapter 5, Man's Origin. This is session number 8. What we're looking at is that there was a problem, is that we do not live in the original world that God created, in that now it is a fallen world, and it is dominated by evil. And evil has taken over and has pushed to the point of being good is disdained and good is mocked and laughed at, and to the point that has pushed God even out of the creation that He created. That He created, He is the creator, and He has been pushed out by which He created. So what is the remedy? What do we do? What is the biblical solution? Back in Romans chapter 1, which we read in the previous session, it describes man's current condition. Well, Romans chapter 8 now gives the solution. For the creation was subjected to vanity, not of its own will, but because of Him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of decay into the liberty of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation groans and travails in pain together till now. Not only so, but ourselves also. We have the first fruits of the Spirit. Even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption and the redemption of our body. That is the current condition, is that we groan, we are under bondage, we are suffering, and not only us, but the whole creation included, but there is a hope that we will be delivered, that God is going to deliver the world and man together. So how will that be? How does it happen? When will it happen? Well, John chapter 3, verses 1 through 8 says, Now there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. The same came to him by night and said to him, Rabbi, we know that you are a leader come from God. For no one can do these signs that you do unless God is with him. And what signs was he talking about? He was talking about the miracles that have been attributed to Jesus and when he walked on the earth. The turning the water into wine, the walking on water, the healing of the people that were sick, the raising of the dead. And Nicodemus is saying, hey, we know that you come from God, because nobody can do the signs. Remember before I had read that Jesus told them, if you don't believe me, believe at least the work I am doing and the signs that I'm giving you, that I come from God, because nobody can do those signs unless they come from God. And that's what Nicodemus is affirming. He says, Rabbi, we know. We. Who's we? What was it? The rest of the rabbis, the ones that were under threat, that if anybody confessed the name of Jesus, they would be kicked out of the temple. They would be excommunicated. And so Nicodemus is saying, we know you are a teacher come from God. For no one can do these signs that you do unless God is with him. Jesus answered. Jesus has a way of cutting straight to the chase in that he doesn't even answer Nicodemus's question. He answers straight back at what Nicodemus needs to know. Jesus answered him, Most certainly I tell you, unless one is born anew, he can't see God's kingdom. Nicodemus said to him, How can a man be born anew? Be born when he is old? Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born? The problem we have is that we're trying to read Scripture in a language that it was not originally written in. And we're also trying to understand it from a perspective and culture that does not pertain to it. It was written in a non-Western culture in, well, the original might have been Hebrew language even, but what we have is Greek. And Jesus answered him, "Most certainly I tell you, unless one is born," the word there in the Greek is a preposition that doesn't mean again or anew, but means from above. So Jesus is saying, most certainly I tell you, unless one is born from above, he cannot see God's kingdom, can't enter God's kingdom. Nicodemus said to him, how can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born? The answer to that is no. That is not what Jesus is talking about. Is that to see God's kingdom, to enter God's kingdom, one must be born from above. We are all born from below. But somehow when we were originally created through Adam and Eve, they had a spirit. God breathed into them his spirit. But since that point, there has entered an evil spirit, a worldly spirit that drives us into the desert, drives us crazy, drives us away from God, when God intended his spirit to be within us to make us in communion with him. But now we seem to be born with a spirit that is of the world, that is contrary. So what Jesus is saying is that one must be born from above. One must be reborn or born with the Spirit of God. Jesus answered, most certainly I tell you, unless one is born of water and Spirit, he can't enter into God's kingdom. That which is born of the flesh is flesh. That which is born of the Spirit is spirit. Don't marvel that I said to you, you must be born anew. You must be born from above. The wind blows where it wants to, and you hear its sound, but don't know where it comes from and where it is going. So is everyone who is born of the Spirit. Those that are born of the Spirit cannot be detected through visible cues. You hear the wind coming, but you don't know where it comes from, where it's going, but you can see its effect. You can see what it does. You know the wind is there because of what it does, but yet the wind has no form. And that's what Jesus is saying, is God is spirit, and that spirit has no form, but you can visibly see its effect. And its effect is to take an effect within us. When we are born of water and of the Spirit, we're born from above. We're reborn with a different spirit from above. So in other words, to be born again or to be born from above does not mean that we have to be saved. We have to do certain physical outward things within a religious context. Jesus is saying to be saved is to be born from above. That's why the thief on the cross, crucified with Christ, there was two thieves. One of them starts making or harassing Jesus. And the other one says, hey, you're under the same condemnation. We're all here to die, but this man has done nothing wrong. And I think he even believed more than that, because he said, Jesus, when you come in your kingdom, remember me. So in other words, he was like repenting. He was like being born of a different spirit. He was not of the spirit of the world that was hurling abuses of Christ, but he was of a different spirit, or became of a different spirit, the spirit from above. And he says, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus said, you're going to be with me today. Colossians chapter 1, verses 21 through 23. You, being in past times alienated and enemies in your mind, in your evil deeds, yet now he has reconciled in the body of his flesh through death to present you holy and without defect and blameless before him. You, being in the past times alienated and enemies in your mind, in your evil deeds. If it is so that you continue in the faith, grounded and steadfast, and not moved away from the hope of the good news which you heard, which is being proclaimed in all creation under heaven, of which I, Paul, was made a servant. We were once alienated and enemies in our minds against God. So in other words, we have a natural disposition, tendency to be enemies of God. And that's how our reasoning powers are orientated. And that's how our critical reasoning would be orientated, is as enemies of God. And that's why to be born from above is to change that disposition, is to change that understanding, change that frame of mind, and to be able to see clearly and to reason clearly what God meant for us to be. 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 6 through 9. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your worries on him, because he cares for you. Be sober and self-controlled. Be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, walks around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Withstand him steadfast in your faith, knowing that your brothers who are in the world are undergoing the same sufferings. Satan is pictured now as a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. He is trying to move us away from being under God to being under the condemnation of death. We have a choice, and we continue to choose just like Adam and Eve chose. They had a choice, life or death. Which one do you choose? Death. Yeah. Well, that's what we have, the same option today, is that we have the option to choose life or death. And Romans chapter 1 says we knowingly choose death. We knowingly suppress the truth about God in unrighteousness, and we claim God does not exist. And our foolish hearts have been darkened to the point that we've convinced ourselves that that's what the truth is, and that we are a reliable source of knowledge, and everyone under the same consensus agrees to what that is. But Satan walks around like a roaring lion. There's another roaring lion, the Lion of Judah. That is Jesus Christ. That is coming back, and that is going to reclaim his creation. And he is going to put this other roaring lion into chains, into a cage. It kind of reminds me of the movie, animated movie, of Simba, and how Simba was the rightful king. He was of the lineage, the lineup, to be the king of his community, his tribe, his group. but then he brings in or comes in this orphan that was kind of darker, but his name was Scar. And Scar, after a while, worked his way into the system and became just like one of the other lions, but then tried to usurp and take control, tried to get rid of Simba, and he took over as the king of that section. And the movie depicts what that did to the countryside, how it turned the countryside from fresh and luscious and flowing water to a burnt, smoldering crisp. And it's kind of like, that is a picture of what the two roaring lions are, in that through Adam and Eve's sin, they have let the roaring lion of deception come in, which is Satan. And now he is seeking whom to devour, whom to deceive, whom to move away from God, to steal from God what rightly belongs to him. But there is another lion coming, the Lion of Judah, which is Jesus Christ. And he is going to come and restore the world. He's going to come and bring hope. He's going to reverse the curses. He's going to bring man back into his proper relationship, into what he was meant to be. That concludes session number 8. We're in chapter 5, Man's Origin. We have one more to go. Critical thinking skills in science. This is not an easy topic to handle, to discuss, because it's complicated. Because critical thinking skills in science, generally we're talking about critical thinking skills as a Western type of attribute that only does the secular world and only does methodological naturalism, and that it's critical about anything that tries to impose itself that is not of the natural world, that is of God. And science, there's various models of science. What science model are we talking about? And so usually we're talking about the approved science model, which is the consensus science model, and every other model that allows God in is labeled as a pseudoscience. So it's kind of a complicated act here, what we're doing, critical thinking skills in science. We will get later on in the other chapters into critical thinking skills on a non-Western science. So that's hopefully that we can see how we can still be critical thinkers, but still under the wisdom of God. Thank you for joining me. We're Tim and Holly Nyquist, and you're welcome to communicate to us through the addresses that are provided on the board. And just want to thank you for being with me and accompanying me through this class of critical thinking skills in science, chapter 5, Man's Origin, session number 8. One more to go. Thank you.